Welcome back to the deep dive. You know how this works. You supply the sources, we provide the shortcut. And today, you've sent us a pretty heavy stack of theological reading. We're looking specifically at Ephesians chapter 2, but also bringing in some radical claims from Galatians and Romans.
Yeah, and the need for this is so high because these are foundational texts, but they are so often, run through modern filters.
Right.
And that leads to a lot of confusion. Terms like dead, the flesh, and especially crucified, they get misinterpreted or, frankly, just watered down.
So what's our mission today?
Our mission is surgical precision. We need to clarify what being dead actually means, what the flesh really refers to, and the profound difference between being crucified alongside Christ versus the spiritual union of being crucified with Christ.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Ephesians 2, verses 1 and 2. Paul says believers were dead in your transgressions and sins.
All right.
To the average person, dead means, game over. Physical death. But that's obviously not what he means here. They were still walking around.
Precisely. And if we don't get this definition right from the start, the whole idea of reconciliation it falls apart.
So where do we start?
Well, your sources clarify that we have to understand the full biblical scope of death. It turns out the scriptures outline not just one, but 4 distinct kinds of death.
4. Okay, that's already an aha moment. Most people, I think, just think of the one.
Exactly. So let's walk through them. The first one is the one that applies directly here in Ephesians. Spiritual death.
Okay.
This is the separation of man's spirit from God's spirit. It's
Yeah.
that core state of being severed from the source of life, even while you're physically alive and breathing.
So the body's working, but the spiritual connection is just offline.
Perfectly put. And the good news, the source confirms, is that this kind of death is reversible. It's what believers are saved from.
Okay, so that's number 1. What's the second?
The second is the one everybody knows, physical death. Simple separation of the human spirit from the physical body.
Got it.
The third is where it gets more intense.
Yeah.
Eternal death, or the second death.
How is that different?
It's critically different. The first two are states of separation. The second death, according to your sources, is described as destruction, and it's irreversible.
Irreversible.
Yes. It's the final sentence, the lake of fire in Revelation. It's not just separation, it's something final.
Wow. That really puts the gift of escaping spiritual death into perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. And then the fourth kind, which sort of wraps the whole narrative up, is what the source calls the death of death.
The death of death. I like that.
It's this incredible, almost poetic concept from Revelation where death itself and Hades are thrown into the lake of fire.
So death dies. The end of the end.
Exactly.
So bringing it back to Ephesians,
Right.
when Paul says we were dead, he means we were in that state of spiritual death, disconnected.
Yes. And that brings us right to verse 3, because he then describes what our natural conduct was in that state.
He says, among whom we all once conducted ourselves. And the sources really zeroing in on that word, conducted.
They do, because it's so much richer than just lived, which some translations use. Conducted implies a pattern, a deliberate way of life, a whole behavioral system.
The full expression of that spiritually dead state.
Right. And that conduct involved gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts.
Huh.
Now, this is where we need to get some real clarity on the words lust and desire.
Okay.
Believe it or not, these two words, they come from the same root word in the original text.
Wait, really? They're the same word. But that seems, in English, lust is bad, desire is neutral. How can they be the same?
And that's why this deep dive is so important. The difference isn't in the word itself, which just means a strong craving, but in the context, the usage.
So desire itself isn't the problem.
Not at all. Desire is generic. It's the raw drive for food, for money, for connection, even for sex. Those are natural drives.
So desire is just the engine. It's the neutral power source.
Precisely. It becomes lust the moment that raw desire is taken outside of God's divine order.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Desiring food is natural. But when that desire leads to gluttony, that's lust. Desiring money is fine, but when it leads you to cheat or steal to get it, that's lust. It's the same drive, just unmoored from its proper context.
That's incredibly clarifying. The problem isn't the feeling, it's the boundary. It's the direction.
Exactly. And notice how Ephesians 2.3 connects it to our thoughts, or our will. The will, our decision-making core, was what was guiding those natural drives into ungodly territory.
The leadership was the problem, not the raw drive itself.
You've got it. And that understanding of the former state leads us perfectly into the radical claim Paul makes after the transformation.
Which brings us to that famous paradox in Galatians 2:2.
This verse is the absolute core of it all. I have been crucified with Christ, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God.
And there's the question, if he's been crucified, if the old I is dead, how can he still be living in the flesh?
This is probably the biggest misconception out there. People hear crucify the flesh and they immediately think of, punishing the body.
Right, like extreme fasting or asceticism or... Well, your source even mentioned things like physical self-harm.
And the source is unequivocal. That is not biblical crucifixion.
Yeah.
Being born again does not mean the removal of your physical body. The word flesh here just means the physical apparatus.
So if the flesh is the body, how do we square that circle? Being crucified but still living in it?
We have to see the body as the vehicle and the spiritual life as the power source. The source material says that as long as the life running through a person is that natural inherited life.
The one passed down from man to man.
Yes, that life will always subject the body to lust and sin.
Ah, I see. So it's not the physical shell that was crucified, it was the life source that was running the shell.
Exactly. Think of it like a classic car. You keep the beautiful chassis, the body, the wheels, the whole physical apparatus, but you take out the old, polluting, inefficient engine, and you replace it with a clean, powerful electric one.
So it's the same car?
It's the same car, but it's now powered by a fundamentally different kind of life. Crucifixion, then, is the removal of a life, that old life, so that another kind of life, the life of faith, can be lived through the very same body.
The same physical hardware, but the old software, that compulsion to sin, has been uninstalled.
Right. It completely reframes the whole idea of the Christian struggle. It's not about fighting your body. It's about operating from a new identity.
Which brings us perfectly to Romans 6:6. It really helps define what that old life, that old identity actually was.
It does.
Romans 6:6 says, knowing this, that our old man was crucified with him. So the I from Galatians is the old man.
Yes. And the old man, or the old self, is defined as a kind of life that makes some kinds of occurrence natural. In other words, it's the sin nature that was in charge.
And that old nature was crucified so that, as the verse says, the body of sin might be done away with.
Right. And given what we just discussed, done away with has to mean something other than just physical destruction.
It can't mean annihilation.
It doesn't. Your source clarifies that the Greek word here means rendered powerless. It's a legal reality. The body that was once ruled by sin is still here, but the power structure that ruled it, the old man, is dead. Its control is broken.
It's been legally disabled.
Exactly. And the concept of union is what makes this all possible. This is where we have to highlight that difference the source makes between being crucified with Christ and being crucified alongside him.
That feels like the pivotal insight.
It is. The two thieves on the cross, they were crucified alongside Christ. They were in physical proximity, but there was no spiritual union in that act.
But for the believer, it's totally different.
Totally. The phrase crucified with Christ is a term of deep, permanent legal union. It's that union that gives the believer access to the reality of the old man's death. It's accepting his death as your own legal standing.
So the implication for you listening is just staggering. If the old man is dead and the body of sin is rendered powerless, you are no longer a slave.
Right. But this is where the doctrine moves from a passive reality to our active responsibility. This is the most crucial takeaway for daily life. Because the body of sin has been rendered powerless, the believer's one responsibility is to reckon this is true.
That word reckon, it feels like it carries a lot of weight. It's more than just knowing it in your head.
It is. To reckon means to actively count it as a fact, to consider it true and to behave accordingly, no matter how you feel in the moment. It's acknowledging the old self is dead, sin's power is broken, and therefore sin does not have rule over you.
I have to ask this, though, for the person listening who is really struggling, maybe with gossip or anger or an addiction, something that feels overpowering. Doesn't this just sound like spiritual denial, like just pretend you're not struggling?
That's a great question, but no, not at all. It is challenging for sure. But the source material draws a very sharp line here. The struggle continues because our flesh is still here, the world is still fallen, but the power of sin to compel us is gone.
So what's happening when a believer feels overpowered?
The moment a believer claims they are overpowered, they are feeling to reckon with the truth of Romans 6. They are, in that moment, willingly accepting the role of a slave when they have been legally set free.
So the difference is huge. A non-believer sins because They have to. They're enslaved to the old man. A believer sins because they choose to momentarily listen to the powerless voice of that old nature.
That's the key difference. The new power source, the life of faith, is still available. You live in the flesh, but not by the desires of the flesh. Reckoning is the active, moment-by-moment maintenance of that consciousness.
It's saying, I choose to believe this is true right now, and I will not yield this body to something that has already been declared powerless.
Exactly.
What a profound responsibility. So this whole spiritual transformation, it's not about harming the body. It's about a shift in the power structure from the old man to the life of faith.
Made possible through that union of being crucified with Christ. That union allows you to live with the full confidence that the body of sin has been rendered powerless. The struggle is now a choice, not a servitude.
This has been incredibly clarifying. Thank you for walking us through these sources. We've gained so much on, flesh, lust, and what crucifixion really means for us.
Of course. And as you take this all in, maybe this is the question to mull over. We've established that the body of sin has been rendered powerless. So what does the active daily work of reckoning actually look like, moment by moment?
How do you maintain that state?
Right. If the enemy still whispers suggestions, how does that active acknowledgement keep the powerless thing from ever regaining perceived power in your mind? That's the real practical challenge of this doctrine.
A great thought to chew on as you carry this into your daily life. Until next time, keep digging deeper.